Okay, good evening, everyone. I'm Mayor Ted Betancourt. I'd like to call the school budget meeting to order. Today is Wednesday, April 29th, 2026, and we are starting our meeting tonight at 6:06 p.m. I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Vidala in a moment, but I did want to discuss some scheduling and look at some potential dates. I know we've made some progress, but there's still a great deal more ahead for us to do and discuss, so I wanted to reserve some dates, even if we don't use these dates, depending on our progress today. But I want to at least reserve some dates as best we can for the future. So I'm looking at, we do already have set Tuesday, May 5th at 6 p.m. I wanted to see if also we could block off Wednesday, May 6th at 6 p.m. Do it a little bit later in that day? Yeah, I'm sure we could. So I wanted to see about Tuesday, May 5th, we already have scheduled. I wanted to see Wednesday, May 6th. Tuesday, May 12th, we have our regular meeting that evening at 7 p.m. Want to see if we can start at 5:30. And then also I wanted to block off Wednesday, May 13th. We also have to be aware and mindful of the fact that we have to have our full public meeting, have enough time in order to get it over to the City Council for their receipt and mark up the dates. We're looking at June 16th and 18th for the City Council. Let me make sure those dates are right. Yes, we've blocked off with the City Council President and Finance Chair Tuesday, June 16th and Thursday, June 18th. I don't know yet what will be the school, the city side on those dates, but we did mark those dates, at least for now. I anticipate they'll probably need another couple of dates with the City Council as well, potentially for some city items. But we have to kind of work backwards from those two dates and make sure that we fit the schedule. So please mark off next Tuesday, the 5th at 6 p.m. Wednesday, May 6th, we could push that back a little bit, 6:30. On May 6th. Tuesday, May 12th at 5:30 prior to our regular meeting time at 7. And then Wednesday, May 13th at 6 p.m. Depending on progress we make, we might not need all of those dates, but I wanted to see if we could pencil those in for now, and I'll have Marge set those up for us and post those appropriately. And again, depending on how we do, we might not need those dates, or we may need some additional dates. So we'll work through that, but I want to at least get that on everybody's schedule for now. So nothing further. I want to turn over to Dr. Vidala, and we can continue our discussion. I know we have some guests today for some discussion and questions. So Dr. Vidala, I'll turn it over to you.
Great. Thank you, Mayor Betancourt. So first off, I just want to thank the committee and thank everyone for a very collaborative and productive meeting last night. We were able to have some modest reductions to the overall budget of $232,545. So the overall budget right now is at $103,542,447. So we don't have that in the draft because it was just last night, but we'll get that as the new draft. But so the draft 4 has been reduced by $232,545. So for tonight, we're going to hear from the Welch Elementary School, Peabody Veterans Memorial High School, the vocational program, as well as performing arts. So we know that we still have some significant reductions to consider. Overall, when we're considering these things, we will be looking at class size and making sure we have some efficiencies there. And then also, if there are any potential retirements that we're anticipating or any natural attrition where we have projected openings, we would like to make sure that we take those. If we are able to not fill those positions, that would be able to retain staff and have some of these reductions due from attrition. So not to bury the lead tonight, but we're going to talk at a high level. There are some areas that we'll be discussing this evening within some locations where there may be potential reductions, but I do not anticipate any recommendations coming this evening for reductions. We'll have some areas that I want to talk about and have a nice robust discussion as we've had at the previous meetings. And then what we'll do is, based on that discussion, I'll bring back as much information, as much detail as possible to the Tuesday, May 5th, with some recommendations for reductions. So tonight is more of learning and asking questions from our people about where we can really target and feel good about, as good as we can, about some of these areas where there are necessary reductions and where they impact students and they impact our faculty at the very least. So without further ado, I'd like to call up Ms. Massa from the Welch Elementary School. So she'll come here. Appreciate some of the staff members being here as well. And so just a quick overview, we'll be looking at the Welch Elementary School, which is tab 7 in your budget book, or page number 11 in the packet. We'll be looking at that. So overall, the Welch has done a very nice job. You saw some of the students. It was one of my favorite elementary presentations this year, with our students' sense of belonging and trusted adult, and some of the wonderful things they're doing to meet the social and emotional needs of our students. They've really done a nice job. The Welch is one of our highest need schools, so they do benefit also from some Title I funding. As we move forward, we are not anticipating any reductions at the Welch School, other than the 25% that we saw in the supply budget. But overall, their staff and their student population is pretty stable in terms of numbers. Yeah. And Ms. Massa will talk a little bit about what that means in terms of the actual students. But they did welcome a large number of students from the center school that are currently in 4th grade, raising to 5th grade, who elected to stay because they feel so welcome, and because the Welch has created such a nice environment for staff and families and for students. So you'll notice that there are 4 classrooms in the 5th grade. That is a bit of a bubble for them, but they've been there since 3rd grade, and then we have them again in 4th grade. We anticipate that for 5th grade. So that position has moved up. Other than that, we see three classrooms across the board, with relatively stable class sizes. And you know, as I said, overall, we're anticipating maintaining everything in this budget, with the exception of that small reduction of 25% to their supply budget. And so you'll see that in the overall draft 4 budget. So that being said, I'll turn it over to Ms. Massa, who will give us a little overview of some of the things that are happening at the wonderful Welch and some of the support that they're receiving, and then an opportunity to answer any questions. Ms. Massa?
Thank you so much. I appreciate it. I am very happy to be here, but not on your side of the table. I hate everything to do with the money side of everything. I deal with the kids. So, like Dr. Vidala said, and thank you to his team as well, that we're not looking at any reductions at the Welch School. We have a unique environment that we work with on a day-to-day basis. Just doing some data crunching and some numbers, because that's the kind of people that we are. We looked at 140 roster changes this year, but our enrollment didn't change. So the students that we start with in September are never the students that we end with in June. That being said, for the most part, from kindergarten to 5th grade, our graduating 5th grade class this year, we're only graduating 18 students that have been with us the entire time, from kindergarten to 5th grade. So that's a little bit different of an environment than some of the other neighborhood schools have the opportunity to have. So it's our mission to make sure that we have that culture of caring at our school, so that everybody knows that when they come in, they're going to be lifted up, so that they can be supported, so that everybody has the right things that they need first before the academic pieces come into play. That being said, we currently have a fully staffed environment at the Welch, and we're very happy with that. I know that budget equals dollar signs, but to us, dollar signs equal people, and our teachers are incredible. They work so hard with our kids day in and day out, all day, all night. They don't go home without a thought of them in their minds. So we're very happy to be able to keep this at a level service budget for us, but I'm happy to open and explore any other opportunities. We did increase our staffing with our ELL teachers this particular year, and it shows, because we got our preliminary access results, and we are very, very happy to say that last year we only had an opportunity to flip 2 students, and this year we flipped almost a quarter of our population. So our people matter.
All right, thank you, Mr. Massa. Any questions? Any items to be brought up? Any thoughts? Mr. Amico?
Chair to Ms. Massa, thank you so much for being here. Thank you for the great work that you do there at the Welch. It's a major challenge. It's not bad, it's a challenge. You know, you're dealing with a very vulnerable community that needs support, and you're providing that with your staff, so thank you to your staff. This is going to be a difficult budget season. Is there something that you might need if, you know, by chance it rains some money our way? Not that it's going to, but it just helps us think for the future, because, you know, we always try to think a year ahead, and it's always good to plan.
Well,
I
you
know
know,
you
it
have a
is
large,
World Wish Day, so if I'm putting wishes into the world.
and I know you have a large EL population, and, you know, so I'm sure that's where some of the supports would be if you needed any, or if you requested any in the future.
In the future, I would love to see if we could maybe try an opportunity to do a full coat-taught environment. With the amount of ELL students, the amount of special ed students, and the high-needs population, what an amazing opportunity that would be. But again, that's World
Yeah.
Wish Day. You know,
Yeah.
I know that that's not
Sure.
in line at the moment, but if we're thinking a couple of years down the road, maybe, you never know, that would be fantastic.
Okay, thank you, appreciate it.
Thank you, Mr. Amico. We do have our full school committee today. We have Ms. Millman joining us remotely. She's at a conference out of state. Ms. Millman, please, you have your hand raised?
I did, although I think Mr. Amico had kind of asked the questions I was asking or thinking about. But Ms. Massa, hello. Thank you for coming. It was a pleasure to meet you and spend some time with you. And I can certainly say the culture of caring over there was immense. And you could see it amongst the staff to the students. You had some remarkable students, some of them that also came and presented at school committee, some of the same kids. It's really great to see that. When you said, when you said the 140 roster changes, that's a phenomenal number. And I guess it was kind of like what Mr. Amico was saying, just kind of thinking about the ELL and the population that you have, of how you bring those students in, and are there some needs, if money were to rain down, in terms of what would make that bringing in those students on and off and in and out, and what would make that easier? What do you see would be needed?
Well, we're lucky to have 2 math interventionists and 2 reading interventionists that help us scaffold that instruction for students, because everybody's coming in from different entry points. So we don't want to necessarily have them miss any of the content that's happening at the current rate in the classroom, but we also set up safety nets to make sure that we're helping kids get to where they need to be if they're coming to us from a different environment or a different state or a different country.
So with that, I do see in the budget, I see a reading teacher, and Dr. Vidal, maybe you can help me out. And I'm assuming that there are some grant related. Is that where some of these interventionists lie and are not visible in the budget right here?
Through the Title I funds is where we're able to support our other pieces.
Okay, so are those 2 full-time FTEs, a math and a reading one through Title I?
Yes.
Okay, this is great to hear. And the other piece I see on the budget that I just trying to understand, Ms. Massa or Dr. Vidala, I do also see this ELA math MCAS after school stipend. Is that still going to be in existence, and is that under a different grant?
So that's part of the after-school clubs, and that's generally run each year. And that has always been in play year to year.
And I can follow up on that too. So every elementary school has $1,000 allocated to either before or after school MCAS prep, and teachers are paid at the hourly rate to come in, and that's in the appropriated budget that we allocate in each of the 8 elementary schools. It's $1,000 per school, and they can target a before or after school MCAS program leading up to MCAS, just to provide a little tutorial.
Okay, and thank you. What is the, also the salary extracurricular listed there, as well in the budget a little further down? Let me see if I can get the
Yep.
number.
And so you'll see that in all of the elementary schools as well. So we provide for, fifth grade basketball, for other after-school activities, stipends for teachers to do after-school clubs and things like that. And so Ms. Massa has a handful of different activities that they do, and teachers receive a stipend for that. So if you want to share the.
So we have the chess club, our basketball teams, the kindness club, the art club. We try to tap into everybody's favoritisms so that they always have something that they can go to. We're lucky through Dr. Chase and her team with some of the grants that we've had through Springboard and the Ignite tutoring program. For us at the Welch, it's much more beneficial to do morning programs and have kids come in the morning, so then we do all of our extracurriculars after school.
Okay, so I guess, Dr. Vidala, for me, that's something I'm going to be looking back at in each of the schools, because it just kind of caught my eye once again, and to understand what that is in each of the schools and how it plays out. Just looking at the amount for each school, it's the same for each school, but we have very, very variable populations at each school. I'd like to find out a little bit from how that's being used, just to, again, look at the equity amount. Just because it's the same amount of dollars doesn't mean it's equitable. If we have different students that are utilizing and do these activities, or even some that can't because there's not enough. So I'm just kind of going to ask a little bit more about that, Dr. Vidala, as we move forward, because I see those line items, and I guess it just caught my eye on this one to what it was. So the only other thing, Ms. Massa, is I can't wait to get back over there to your school. And I really enjoyed it. And I know, and I'm going to do a little shout out to Miss Bugler, who does Destination Imagination. As you and I talked about that, I actually found materials I can share with you from my days as a manager there. More than happy to give it to you, and hope that you can, Miss Bugler, and perhaps you can connect about getting that over to your building. Excellent. Because I think you'd love it with them, and I imagine your staff as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Millman. Any other questions for Ms. Massa? Mrs. Dunn?
Actually, no questions, but some praise. Thank you for everything that you and the staff do for all of those students. I am so familiar with the Welch, I wasn't surprised to hear about the in and out rate. And it's always been something that's been astonishing to many people, but we know how it works at the Welch. And it does work out okay. I am going to pass along some recognition for you. I was at the National School Board Association conference a couple of weeks ago in San Antonio, and the Ignite program was there as an exhibitor. And when I went over, I was surrounded by people who said, "Do you know the Welch School?" And I just started to laugh, and I said, "I certainly do." And they were talking about how much they enjoy coming to the Welch and the work they're doing with the students. It's a reading tutoring program for people who don't know. And it was really awesome to be that far away and to be with 5,000 people and have them single me out. And I was, yes, I am a product of the Welch. I am very, very happy about the Welch. So,
thank you.
Nice reputation it carried across the country.
They're very proud of themselves
Yes.
at the progress they've made. So
Absolutely.
Great. Thank you, Mrs. Dunn. Any other questions? All right.
Thank you,
Thank
Ms.
you.
Massa. We appreciate you coming in.
thank you.
And if there's anything else, we'll certainly reach out to you. Well done. So next, I would like to call up Principal Randall from the high school. And along with her, she's going to have Diana Finn, who is our Director of Counseling, and also going to call up John Simmons from Performing Arts and Shannon Spinoza from our vocational program. And so the way this will work a little bit, I'll kind of give an overview. I'll give a little bit of an overview, and then I'll let Principal Randall jump in, and where Ms. Spinoza and Mr. Simmons spend a great deal of time at the high school, we thought it'd be good to sort of have them all present. So I had the pleasure of going to the high school today for the grade 9 civics showcase. Students did an unbelievable job, and I was happy that one of the groups that had asked me to come in and have a conversation about some of the questions they had was one of the winners, and they are interested in coming before the school committee to talk about some legislation that they would like to see change and some regulations at the state level, so around snow days. And so, that's a little piece that they like to bring to you. So I think that's interesting. And it's just a microcosm, and I like to lead with that just because our kids are doing amazing things every day. And so, tonight we're going to talk a little bit about the high school, and, we'll talk a little bit about sort of the future. We're planning on building a new building and getting ready for that new building and changing some of our programs, which include some of our CTE programs and, of course, our wonderful performing arts. And, we do understand that there is a slight reduction in the enrollment, and that does impact, what we're able to offer and what our funding is. And so that's a reality. So there may be some areas within the high school that we will look for reductions. Tonight we'll get a high-level overview from Principal Randall and her team and what's going on there. And I'm sure there'll be questions. We'll gather the information that you're looking for and bring that back next week. But I wanted to have a high-level conversation. This is a tough conversation, so we don't want to rush this decision. We do want to make sure we get all the information. You have time to make some of the, have some of the questions that you need and bring that forth so we can make really important conversations and make these important decisions. So I'll turn it over to you, Ms. Randall. I know you guys are doing some great things. Give a quick overview, and then, we can certainly have some back and forth.
Excellent. Thank you, Dr. Vidal. And I'll be as quick as I can, but those that know me know that I like to be thorough in what I like to explain to you. So, but I will try to keep it as a high-level overview, knowing that we'll probably have lots of questions, whether it's today or whether it's on another day to come too. So, first off, I just want to start by acknowledging the whole committee and all the principals that have come before me. I share in the thanks for support. I know every time in the last almost 4 years now that I've come before this committee, you've always been very supportive of what we do at the high school, and I just want to acknowledge that and thank you all for that. I appreciate the questions and the pushback on certain things and the back and forth, but I always appreciate the overall support, so thank you. And just a thank you to Dr. Vidala too. Obviously, he and I work very closely together, and he supports our vision, the work that we're doing, the support with a lot of our partners that we have in academia, and I just want to say thank you again for that, because I feel like we are on a great trajectory at Peabody High School. I feel like we've gained, and I can just speak to these last 4 years, but I feel like we're gaining a lot of really positive momentum, and sky's the limit, I think, with building a new high school in the next few years and some of the programming that we're working on and some of the instructional vision that we have. I'm really excited for the future. So I just want to, again, thanks for the support. Again, I'm going to acknowledge right out the gate, it's a difficult budget season yet again. Last year was a difficult year. We did have reductions at the high school. We had to find ways to reduce our staff by 4, I believe it was, at the end of the day last year. That's difficult to do. I will never advocate for loss of any of my staff at the high school. I just want to make that very clear. I will never advocate to lose anybody. Every single staff member at the building, from my position down to every member of our security team, custodial staff, cafeteria team, paraprofessionals, certainly all of our teachers in our classrooms, our instructional leaders, everybody's role is extremely critical. I just want to make sure to take the time to say that. What everybody does matters so impactfully to our students' progress. So, but with that said, I know our whole district is facing a $3 million budget gap that you're looking to close, and we need to do that collectively, and I do understand that. So there's a couple things I mainly want to speak to today, and it's in terms of where we are now and looking at the year ahead. So first, what I can tell you is we've just completed our process just recently of student scheduling. So it's this time of year, late winter, early spring, where students are picking courses for next year and what they're going to matriculate into, of course. And that's everything from the 8th grade students into 9th grade and, you know, to the 10th, 11th, and rising 12th graders. In completing that process, what we then do is we call them the simple tallies. We kind of take, you know, what students are opting to sign up for, what they need to take. Dr. Vidal already mentioned it. Yes, we're sort of we are at this point at Peabody High School where we have an enrollment of about 1,200 students. That's the lowest I think Peabody High School has ever seen. I think everybody in this room knows we don't anticipate to stay here forever. I know that there's younger grades with much larger student enrollment, with a new school, again, on the horizon that we're building to fit capacity of almost 1,700 students. I expect our population to grow again. But we are where we are, and that is the reality, that we are where we are. And it impacts what we're seeing in our scheduling. And so in running the scheduling numbers, I have amazing department heads of all the different content areas that kind of take the first crack at that and look at the numbers of students that are signing up for courses, and what they do is they take that and they build teacher schedules accordingly. Now, the last couple of years, we have had quite a few areas where we're running classes of very small class size. And that's just a fact. I think that's a wonderful thing, to be honest with you. I think the smaller class sizes we can have is more impactful for kids. You have that more direct instruction. Of course, it's more impactful for kids. But again, we are a school where contractually we can have class sizes up to 28 in a classroom. And in many areas, it's been quite a bit below that. In looking at the numbers, again, taking what the department heads have done, I went and I kind of ran the numbers also myself. I wanted to get my own eyes on that. Certainly not looking to fill all classes, you know, to that capacity limit. And again, it's different a little bit in different subject areas. For instance, science class limits are a little bit lower because it's 24, because that's what can fit in a lab, right, successfully. But I'm not looking to push to the limits. I think if I were looking to ask the department heads to build schedules to all the capacity limits, that would leave us quite short, to be honest, section number-wise. What I did when I kind of took an overview look at all of the numbers and sections, I sort of landed on what I feel is a sort of a very appropriate number in average class size, sort of an ideal wheelhouse that sort of landed around the number 18 as an average class size, meaning some courses, some classes might be slightly higher than that, some might be slightly lower than that, but in the major content areas, looking like a standard across the board of 10 less than what our contractual upward capacities are in these classes, and looking around in 18 to try to look to see what our teacher schedules are looking like. And to be honest, like what happens when we come out and do that is we come up with around a handful of teacher schedules right now that I'm unable to fit schedules into. I'm unable to assign classes to, just because of, you know, again, it just kind of comes down to our numbers. We only have so many students in the building, bodies to be in classrooms and in seats in these courses. It does become a little bit content specific too at times, because of course at the high school, students are selecting courses, especially by the time they get to the upperclassmen grades. They can choose kind of a little bit more of what they're interested in, right? And so, you know, there could be a content area that some of the electives are filling up quickly. Like I think, you know, we have a very popular elective in science of forensic science. It's an elective, but we end up running 5 to 6 sections of it because it's so popular. So it's what students are opting to take, and the numbers are really sort of what drives things here. So where we sit right now in terms of looking at scheduling and looking at what we have for teachers assigned, like I said, looking at a little bit across the major content areas, looking at about an average class size of 18 students. We're able to fill schedules, but at this time, there's about a handful of schedules that unfortunately have 0 sections assigned to them currently at this time. I just want to leave that there and move on to another item, but I just wanted to make the committee aware of that. Again, I don't put that out there as an advocating for a reduction or a loss of any staff of any kind. Everybody's role is critical, and low class size is extremely important for teaching and learning. But I also understand the bigger picture here, and that I have a responsibility to bring to you sort of what, you know, kind of what I'm seeing, and also keep numbers reasonable. Something else that I do want to bring up too is, you know, outside of teaching staff, we have so many roles in our building that are student support structure, right? So counselors, administration. Again, just like classroom teaching and in student support roles, every role is extremely critical. Every role is extremely critical, and to continue to efficiently and effectively support all students and staff, both in and out of the classroom, and support the instructional journey that we're on and some of our next steps in our goal setting of what we're trying to achieve. I don't believe at this time it's in anybody's best interest to see any sort of reduction to our student support staff. In fact, if this was a wish list year, I know Principal Massa kind of spoke to that a little bit too. If this was a wish list year, I would say I need more student support staff. I would like to see us hire 3 to 4 more student adjustment counselors. I believe we need a student adjustment counselor, at least 1 per grade level, to service all students. You know, right now our adjustment counselors that we do have are absolutely wonderful, and they mainly service our students that are on IEPs strictly. So again, it's not a wish list year. I'm not here to necessarily advocate for those things, but it speaks to the fact that everybody in a student support facing position, whether it's in counseling, whether it's our administrative staff, has a critical role to play and wears many hats when it comes to student support. Our 1,200 students that we do have in the building right now have a lot of needs. You know, with not just academic support needs, social emotional support needs, mental health support needs, and all of these student support facing individuals are critical in supporting all of our students in all of those best ways possible. Working as a team, working individually, but it filters up to the administrative staff doing a lot of social emotional support and coaching with our students too. There's a couple of kind of things that I want to hit on within that, because I think in order to best meet all of our student and staff support needs moving into our next steps, like I just mentioned, I would not support any reduction to any student support staff at this time. However, I do think it's in our best interest to consider a bit of a restructure. And I'd like to speak to you tonight a little bit about my plan for a restructure of specifically our administrative team at the high school. Currently, besides myself, as you know, we have an assistant principal, we have 4 deans of students. Each dean of students services right now 1 particular grade level. We've had that in for the last 4 years. And so now at this point on our team, each dean of students has now had each grade level. They've circulated through, and each dean has experienced what it's like to lead a 9th grade class, a 10th grade class, 11th and 12th grade class. There's a lot of advantages to having a single dean per grade and follow the students up. There's a lot of advantages to that, but I do see some advantages to kind of the way that we had it before then. When I was a dean of students, I was one of 3, and we had like an alphabetical split. So when I was a dean of students, I had all 4 grades, kids that were last names M through Z, right? And there was advantage to that as well in many ways. I want to bring up a couple of things to speak to this idea of an administrative restructure to best meet our needs moving forward. A glaring data point that you'll see on our district report card is our 9th grade pass rate. Our 9th grade pass rate is currently at 65%. The state average is at 80%. we're 15 points below the state average in our ninth grade pass rate. Ninth grade pass rate is the largest indicator of overall high school graduation success. All the studies show the more students that successfully complete ninth grade, all subgroups will successfully complete their 4 years of high school. I mean, we have made some gains in some of the changes, some of the structures, some of the instructional vision that we have put into place with our instructional model and some of the ways that we're focusing in on what happens within the classrooms. We have risen from 57% pass rate up to this 65% pass rate in the time that I've been here as principal at Peabody High School. But again, 15 percentage points below the state is just not acceptable. To me, that's an area where it's an absolute critical area that we lean into. I would like to advocate that we do keep a dean of students for ninth graders, as we currently have, but not necessarily like we've been operating where the dean of the graduating senior class just loops back to have the incoming ninth grade. But to work with my team, work with my administrative team, to find that best fit and to keep a dean of students in the ninth grade, but make that support team even larger. So not just a dean of ninth grade students, but from our counseling staff, a couple of dedicated counselors who will be just for that ninth grade incoming class, and a group of advisors, which we do currently have. We have an advisory system in the school where we have grade level advisors. Currently, our grade level advisors also will matriculate through with our students. So our current ninth grade advisors, as the plan stands, would rise up and have the students in 10th grade, 11th grade, 12th grade to create that primary person model and stay with the students through 4 years. What I would like to see as a ninth grade support team is not necessarily those 12th grade advisors who are going to have their students graduate, loop around and take the ninth grade, but be more intentional on the selection of who are those teachers that may be the best fit. They love working with ninth graders. You know, they're a great fit for that, and really create a structured team of ninth grade advisors that will remain ninth grade advisors for not just the class of 2030, but the class of 2031 and beyond. I think with a designated dean of students, a couple of counselors, and a dedicated advisory team, we'll be able to make more really intentional, impactful, significant impact to our ninth graders overall in their support, and which will lead to better outcomes. And start there. I'm not advocating for an overall like SLC model like we used to have years ago, where it's all designated content area teachers also. I think just kind of naturally we have some teachers in the building that are teachers of ninth graders, but I wouldn't want to, you know, pigeonhole them into like just doing ninth grade and only ninth grade. I think a lot of our teachers have such special skill sets to teach all grade levels. So that is one area of a administrative restructure that I would like to implement for next year, is implementing this much more intentional ninth grade support team. Another piece that we've been working on the last several years with some outside partners of the Barr Foundation specifically and Spring Point, we've developed a school-wide instructional model. I could tell you more about that another time in the development of that, but it was kind of really a grassroots process to develop that internally. It's basically a model that's kind of focusing on some key areas of what we want to see to support best instruction in classrooms in terms of the rigor, the relevance, the feedback, collaboration, and just to name a few. The last just over the last year, as a school-wide piece of goal, we've been focusing on the collaborative aspect of that instructional model. Our professional development has been around what is meaningful collaboration, student collaboration looking like in the classroom, and how does that lead to improved results, improved classroom experience for students, and overall learning. And so we've been leaning into that through our friends and partners at Spring Point and the Barr Foundation. We've been working with the same facilitators, too, for the last over a couple of years now. They've been in every time that we do instructional rounds as a team. We're bringing in more teachers to participate in those instructional rounds every single time. We've brought students into that process most recently on the last couple of instructional rounds. This is all just to say we're really dedicated to our instructional vision, our instructional journey, and kind of the where we are now and what we need that would best support our next steps to make really meaningful change at Peabody High School in an instructional way. I think we're poised, and we're sort of at a bit of an inflection point right now to really start to push that bar up and really raise that bar. I think in ways that we're going to really start to see reflected in the data and in our school report card and in our analytics. In order to do that, I believe we need more help and assistance from members of our administrative team. Right now, I kind of take the reins on that a lot myself. To give a metaphor, I'm doing a lot of work from the dance floor rather than from the balcony, and kind of really getting my hands dirty with that work specifically. That has to be done that way. I'm glad to do that work. But I need more of a partner in that work moving forward if we're really going to push that bar. For the student support aspect of things and for the teacher support aspect of things as well. We've had great professional development. Lots of times the feedback from that development is, I really need more support in the in-between. We have a great experience in professional development, but I need more tools in my toolkit. I need more support at those very next steps. And I think that's where the work slows a little bit before then we gear up for the next instructional rounds or the next, professional development day. So what I would like to propose is that another member of the administrative team, who right now may be one of our deans of students, actually becomes a dean of academics, working closely with me, taking more of a front seat when it comes to preparing those instructional rounds, working with our department heads to just have clarity and coherence around the work that we do in professional learning communities and in our common planning time, to take on a little bit more of a direct teacher evaluator role and a bit of more of a backseat on the student-facing side. I think another piece comes with that is, yes, we've mentioned a couple times already, we're in the process of getting ready to build a new high school. That will pull my time away into that quite significantly as well. And we cannot allow the amazing work that our teachers are doing and that our teacher leaders are doing, we can't let that stall. And so I feel it's very critical to have a member of our team sort of transition into a bit more of an academic lead like that at the in-house level at the high school. As far as the remaining administrative team, I have an assistant principal who is my right hand, my left hand, my left foot, and my right foot. I think we are an incredible team, and my assistant principal right now is more of is kind of an operations management role, and just wears several hats as far as the job that he does every single day in and day out. And plays absolute critical roles in the job that he does. The other two deans of students under this, so I wouldn't want that role to change at all. The other two deans of students, I've left out the other grades of the building, 10 through 12. I'd like to see the other two deans of students return to more of a alphabetical split to oversee grades 10 through 12. One dean being A through L, the other M through Z. Again, I think with our enrollment in the building. I think that's it still leaves them with a very manageable student caseload. Again, right now, all of our deans are asked to do so many things. They're asked to not only be deans of students and, kind of be that front line of like any disciplinary measures, but they're also asked to be the instructional leaders. They're asked to be the coaches. They're asked to do so many things and be in so many places that when you're asked to do that, it's hard to do any one of those things to your full capacity. And I think, sometimes I hear that and I feel that from some of the teaching staff too. Sometimes feeling like they're in need of a little bit more support. And that's no fault, that nobody's dropping the ball. It's just that some of our administrators are pulled in so many different directions. I think by making this restructure, so once again, keeping my role and my assistant principal's role static, having a 9th grade dean of students lead a 9th grade support team, having a dean of academics for the continued work we're looking to do instructionally and really raise the bar at Peabody High School, and have 2 deans split grades 10 through 12 alphabetically, have less of an instructional, priority on their plate, if you will. Be involved, but certainly less of a role that they're taking right now, and be able to be first and foremost that just fully student-facing and direct support for teachers in the classroom on the team. What they would have, too, is a couple of designated counselors with them as well. So if you know the physical layout of Peabody High School, and I know you all do, the standard houses, that we have up on the 3rd floor, going back to kind of having that dean of grades 10 through 12, letters A through L with 2 designated counselors, and the same M through Z with 2 designated counselors. I think we desperately need a bit of a reset when it comes to role clarity up at the high school, and I think this restructure of the administrative team with the other collective support of the counseling staff, and resetting and reclarifying our roles and expectations and who to go to when, is all going to be very meaningful, not just for our staff, but for our students and for our families as well. And again, these roles are critically important. If we reduced by any amount to that student support-facing team, it would have a negative and critical ripple effect impact through to not only to our student support, but to the way that we're able to support our staff as well. Again, at the outset, I said, I know I'm long-winded. I accept that about myself, but to me it's important. I feel that I wanted to add all of that detail to provide as much clarity as I could to you about where we're at. I think if you know me, a lot of you do, I'm going to be very thoughtful and very thorough in my approach and what I bring to you. And what I bring to you is done with a lot of care and with what I believe is truly the best for Peabody High School and the best for our students and the best for moving forward. So I'll leave that there. That's what I wanted to say about the where we are at and where we're moving forward. So I appreciate your listening and not glazing over. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Randall. Open it up for comments or questions. Do you want to do it that way, or? Yep. Dr. Cox.
Thank you, and thank you for sharing all the information across the board. I really appreciate it. One thing that I actually really appreciate that you're hoping to, kind of move forward with is trying to have that role clarification. I think that's something that is incredibly important to have for not only for our staff, but for our students to know where they go, for what, when. If so many people are wearing so many different hats, it's like, who do I go? Sometimes I go to this person for this, sometimes I go there, and sometimes that even is just setting up our students for failure because they don't know where to go to seek the information that they're looking for. So I think that's a very valuable idea, and hope that it's gonna, whatever we can do to help support that, let us know. Additionally, I think it'll just help with that freshman class. I think the stability of having it be one person and one team of people that can really collaborate really strongly together to really build a foundation for our freshman students is so necessary. I mean, it's such a transitional year. It is the foundation of literally how you're going to learn through your high school years and then if you choose to go to college. So I think it's definitely a very well thought out plan, and I am looking forward to supporting you.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Mr. Olympio?
Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Randall and your team. I have to say that you laid it out perfectly. You knocked it out of the park. I followed every word that you said. What I appreciated most was you were advocating for your staff and your team. You had a very practical and realistic outlook on things. Two things can be true. You acknowledged the areas that needed to be improved upon, but yet celebrating the progress. And the fact that you can recognize that there is a solution in front of you without tipping over desks and screaming, and we have to do this, and we have to do that, we want this, and we want that. The fact that restructuring, I mean, I love that, restructuring without reducing.
Yeah.
And to me, I have all the confidence in the world with you and your team, and it was just, I was just, every word that I followed, every word, you weren't long-winded, because not too many people can articulate that areas of improvement, but yet celebrating the progress, and certainly acknowledging your team, and realizing that there's solutions in front of us. It's just we might have to look at it in a different way. So to me, that's just great, and you made me feel really confident that things are going to go ahead. Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
Thank you, Mr. Olympio. Mr. Amico?
Thank you through the chair. Thank you, Ms. Randall, and thank you to your team for being here. Again, thank you for, and I echo what Mr. Olympio said, thank you for advocating for your staff, your students, and for your community. One of the things that I want to look at is the enrollment is down to 1,200. When you think of that, you think, oh, fewer students, probably don't need as much. Those of us who've been around a lot, sometimes the numbers really don't matter. You could have 1,700 students and probably not have the needs that you have with 1,200. And I think just because we're down to 1,200 students doesn't mean that we don't have those excessive needs. And you mentioned you'd like to see 3 more adjustment counselors, and I couldn't agree with you anymore. And I'd like to put this out to Dr. Chase, Dr. Vidala, and Ms. Dunn, you're my go-to as well. You know, as a gateway city, one of 26, there has to be something out there to help us out with more social emotional grant money or something to help us hire more adjustment counselors, because it's definitely needed. We've said this over and over. If kids aren't right, they're not learning. You know, let's not fool ourselves.
Yeah.
You know, we have a mental health crisis in this state, in this country, and we can look at it and say, oh, we only have 1,200 kids. You know, we don't need the staff that we needed last year. Or we can say, why do we have 1,200 kids? And you know, I've pointed this out. The Higgins School is a great school, and we have 6 private schools within 4.5 miles of this building. Okay, the economy's been great the last 5 or 6 years, right? People have some expendable income. Hey, let's throw $25,000 at a private school, right? People think that way, and we lose a lot of our students. And it's not because of what we are not doing at Peabody High School. People just have options. I do think with the new building coming online in 3 to 4 years, those numbers will go up. But in the meantime, I really think we need to address the fact that even though we have 1,200 students there, and it's a lot less than our 1,400 or 1,500 that we've had in the past, the needs are still probably greater than those that we had in the past. So I'd like to see if we can do something on our end, whether it's talk to our state representatives, bring the MASC in, talk to our legislature, because we need more counselors before we can do the academic piece. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Amico. Ms. Millman?
Hi. Mr. Randall, I know I don't know you well, but the few hours we spent together, you definitely do things in a very thoughtful manner. And I can see that you put a lot behind this. It is greatly appreciated. And I also want to really say thank you for recognizing the numbers that we are faced with, and knowing that we need to do something about it. I think restructuring and thinking about that ninth grade issue, and the indicator that it relates to is incredibly important. Also, what was shared in a PowerPoint that I shared at last school committee, one of the last school committee meetings, we also have an incredible dropout rate. And I would think that the ninth grade, the way you're approaching is with the ninth grade, we can address that as well. Or I think it may be addressed as part of it just innately, based on what you're doing, because that indicator about passing courses can actually lead to also that dropout rate. So I want to just give you, recognition for recognizing it, knowing that it's something there, admitting that this is what we have and we need to deal with it. And I think that's, we need to do a lot more of that. So I'm glad you've been thoughtful about it. The other piece I do, as Mr. Amico had said, I do want to see, where are the students going if they're not going to Peabody? There is a reduction of numbers of Peabody students that are going to be going to Essex Tech. So I'm actually surprised to see the numbers further get smaller, because we have a smaller group of kids that are going to the tech next year. So where are the kids going? I think that's something we need to look at just collectively, as well, because 1,200, that's not that big. That's pretty small. And if it's going to get smaller, what's that going to mean? The other thing is, you mentioned and I'm just on my screen here looking at the budget. I guess that's what we're here for too. There's 2.0 adjustment counselors, and you referenced those are mostly dealing with as related service providers for special ed. Am I correct in that, reading that correctly, that those 2.0 are generally referencing kids getting services with school adjustment counselors and special ed?
Yes, it should be. I believe, because we do have 3 at the high school, but one could be funded from another area. Dr. Vidal, if you want
Yes,
to chime in.
one of them is funded in the special ed budget. And so that one was the original one that was primarily doing IEPs, and then we've added 2 in this budget since then to increase the need. And ideally, one of them was around sort of the pre-referral process, a general ed type support before getting to an IEP. And we know that, with the increased need, that some of that has bled into making sure that first and foremost the IEP services are met.
So Dr. Vidala and Ms. Randall, are you both saying that the reflection in this budget under the high school where it says 2.0, in actuality, there's 3 FTEs at the high school in the position of school adjustment counselor? I see Ms. Vin nodding her head.
One of those is contained in the special education budget,
Okay.
location 17.
So Dr. Vidal, at some point, I hope to get a better understanding of the reflection of staffing inclusively in the schools, because that is something that seems to be amiss, and really it's hard to see that and to know then where are these people. So if these 2 are not under special ed and these are high school, it's still helpful to know how many are in the high school, because it's what are our kids getting. And then there's 6.0 guidance. Is that number accurately reflected?
Yes, we have 6 guidance counselors at the high school.
Okay. And the guidance counselors, is that something that you're going to attach as one of the more stationary teams for ninth grade?
That's correct. Yeah, from the 6, there would be no reduction or additions. It would just really be sort of a reshuffling of caseload, really, is what it is. So out of the 6, 2 would be designated for that ninth grade support team. So would take the ninth grade students. The other 4 would alpha split for the grade 10 through 12.
Okay. And it's good to get a better understanding of that. In fact, at this conference, one thing that's being talked about is how we use school adjustment counselors and guidance counselors, and are we using them in the right ways? And so it's really good to hear that and how it's being used, and making sure we have that differentiated and understanding. Is that going to create a heavier caseload then for the guidance counselors in the upper grades?
It does slightly, it comes out to about 75 students, I think, different. Because there's, again, just using round numbers, we know these won't be exact, but, ninth grade will be roughly 300. So if two counselors splitting that at 150, whereas the caseloads for the other four might be a little closer to 220. So it would be a bit higher on caseloads there. I think when we look at just everything else that might be in the roles and responsibilities there, certainly, there is a job description, of course, that exists, and no matter what grade level you're servicing, you're still going to touch upon all of those different items in that job description, but whether you're servicing ninth grade or servicing 10th through 12th, it just might be a little heavier on one area than the other. But I do think because of, the ninth grade counselors, yes, they might have a slightly smaller caseload, but there's going to be a lot more intensive push in, for, of course, those transition services. I imagine, just a lot more, meetings with parents, a lot more of those, those kinds of responsibilities too, that not to say the other counselors won't have, but again, it's just sort of within the job description, kind of pushing of responsibilities a little bit heavier in one area than maybe the other. So, again, yeah, to answer your question, though, yes, it would be a slightly higher caseload for the 10 through 12 counselors, but I do think that there would be a trade-off in kind of some of the responsibilities that those ninth grade counselors may have. And it could involve, like, more pushing into advisory, maybe more push into even some classroom spaces at times. Again, all things within job description, but things that might be, taking up their time a little bit more than, I think the trade-off will be there in that way.
So a couple of questions with that. Those counselors then doing the 10 through 12, are they going to continue to rotate?
They would stay static. So when a student coming out of, students coming out of ninth grade, once they hit 10th, so they're 10th through 12th, they would have the same counselor and the same dean of students for 10 through 12 in this structure plan.
That was a question. And then, again, back to just thinking of the school adjustment counselors and counselors, do you have any specifically designated, and is that the third one into the social emotional programming that you have at the school?
No, so I don't, at this point, I don't anticipate any change to how the current student adjustment counselors operate and their caseloads that they have. I think, again, in an ideal world, I would want an adjustment counselor that could be specifically on that ninth grade support team to service all students. Same thing, even if I couldn't get one by grade level, but maybe for that grade 10 through 12 first half of the alphabet, and another one for grades 10 through 12 second half of the alphabet, just to basically team up with that dean and two school counselors to better service our students' social emotional needs in those groups. That would be ideal, because I think right now with not having adjustment counselors that could service all students in that way, some of that social emotional support and intervention will fall on the school counselors in addition to the administrator.
So I hear that. I guess what I'm asking is something a little bit different, and this may not be in this budget page or for you to answer, and you can certainly tell me if that's the case. What I'm talking about is the social emotional learning program that's in the building. And if that,
TLC, I'm sorry. Yeah.
Yes. If there is an additional counselor that's in this part of the budget that is attached to that as clinical support staff in that program.
Yes, I can't point to where the exact line item would be. Dr. Vidala, you might be able to do that,
So-
but there is a counselor there.
So the TLC program, which used to be called
Yep.
the Community High School, was previously housed outside of the high school years ago. And so that program has always been funded through special ed. And so that whole program, the 5 FTEs that are included in that program, including a full-time counselor, is in the location 17, the special ed budget. It is currently housed in D-House at the high school, but the funding for that you'll see in the special ed budget, because originally it was funded outside of the high school.
Okay.
So that dedicated counselor, school adjustment counselor, is housed there, and it's funded in, I can tell you the line item. It's in
You don't have to get to it.
17. Yeah, it's in 17 under, I think there's 5 FTEs total.
Okay, and it's just trying to understand kind of the makeup in terms of like, if those are specifically dedicated, will not be used differently within the context of the high school. They are just with the TLC then.
Correct.
Is that
Yeah,
right?
that's 17008 is the location of that therapeutic program in the high school. And so those teachers and, excuse me, that counselor are dedicated to the students that are there. And then additionally, the counselors that we have in the high school budget are just dedicated to the high school.
Okay, can they similarly low access perhaps the resources of the ninth grade kind of static team and some of that? Because I know as being in the building, are they able to do that? And maybe it's not warranted, I understand that, but will they be able to do that?
So they would be able to access guidance. So they would have an assigned guidance counselor, and then there is a school-based health center, so they'd be able to access additional resources. And they do benefit from, nursing staff and other staff throughout the high school as well.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Randall, the other thing I do want to bring up, because I want to know what the impact is. I do see, and I'm very pleased to see MassCore in the new program of studies. I think that we are getting ahead of things at this point, because I think it's coming from the governor's office regardless, and that's going to be a whole other thing that we're going to have to shift. So I'm glad to see it there. I do have some questions about that, because one of the things that we're not currently doing, we don't currently have the lab science requirement, and the lab numbers have to be smaller classroom just because they're in the lab and those restrictions that you have with the lab. Do you see in the structuring that you're talking about, and you talked about, I believe it was four staff that they're not slotted for classes. Do you see an impact of adding MassCore as our requirements? I don't want to be foolish and say, well, we're adding MassCore, but we're also getting rid of teachers, but MassCore is putting an added burden that we have not had. We have not had. And so I don't want to jump, and I know we're not making any votes tonight, but I don't want to jump to anything when we think about the addition of MassCore. Can you tell me how you've thought, because I know you've thought about it, how you thought about that impact?
Definitely thought about it. I think half my brain is thinking on the future, but half my brain has to be planted in the reality of what's right in front of me, right in this year. And so, I know you brought up science as an exemplar, but the truth is, when we turn over to MassCore grad requirements, which will be with our incoming class of 2030, our freshman class next year, to be subject to that, it's more than just that third year of lab science. It is also the 2 years of consecutive language, which also currently is not a grad requirement, which will be. So when we think about overall staffing, I need to think about that area as well as lab science. Also in social studies as well, because one of the requirements is to take world history, where right now it's world history and a U.S. history, whereas now for our grad requirements, it's just a U.S. history. So, I'm thinking about multiple areas when I think about what do our numbers look like right now, and how is that impacting potential staffing right now versus what potentially might we need a year from now, right? So of course I'm thinking of that. To be honest with you, it's hard to predict. It's hard to predict if the numbers indicate right now that let's say for instance, a reduction of a science teacher could be necessary per the numbers, per the enrollment. Would we actually need to recall that staff member next year? And right now, I've tried to, kind of really think of a definitive answer to that. Unfortunately, I don't have the answer to that just yet. What I can tell you is it's one of two things. It's either yes or no. But no, it's either we actually will be able to still meet all the needs with current staffing. I think even if potentially there was a reduction of a staff member, but it could indicate that we would need to reopen and look for somebody else next year. I think, when you look at our Mass Core completion rate right now, even though it's not a graduation requirement, the latest numbers indicate, right, it's right around, it's 76%. It's about 75%, let's say, just to be rounded off, of our students complete Mass Core requirements anyhow, right? Completing those Mass Core requirements are what's required for matriculation to Mass state colleges and universities. So about, if you think of just last year's graduating class, it would be as if, okay, just looking at the numbers in that sense, if 75%, again, I'm rounding, but if 75% of our class of 25 completed Mass Core requirements just kind of anyway, we'd be looking at, okay, that extra 25% of students. Would have been roughly 80 more students that would have, needed to check all those Mass Core completion boxes. Now, we'd also have to kind of dig into that as well to see, was it just a lab science they were missing? Was it more? Was it just 2 years of consecutive language? So I think there's just a lot more of some data digging to really try to come up with a definitive answer to your question, unfortunately, which was, thinking about our potential staffing adjustments that might have to happen this year. Let's be thoughtful what might happen a year from now. It's simply too kind of tough to call. We may end up needing to reduce this year and have a recall in a certain content area. That might be a reality a year from now.
So I respect your answer greatly, immensely. And I have looked a lot at the data, and what's problematic is looking at who is that 75% and what does that look like is incredibly concerning. And that's something that I have shared. And you have access to the same, and clearly you've looked at it as well. And so I do have concerns about kind of dropping any staff, looking at some of that data and needing to look more in towards actually at Peabody and the makeup of what are the kids that have not met it and how do we make sure they meet it. And I do put a bit of caution out there. Our program of studies has not been approved. I know that there's been class selection already, but it has not been approved as a program of studies. We're a little behind. Nor has it been agreed which class is going to start with Mass Core. And what I think is going to be beneficial is and I think some of this work is being done of this year's freshmen and this year's perhaps sophomores, although I do think that would be a little bit difficult, most explicitly because of the language requirement, but this year's freshmen who hasn't met it, so that we can actually start it sooner than later. And this is not just about going to college. This is not about being able to get into a Mass state university. This is about having a fundamental education for all students. And I think that's a piece that is really what we as a community want to make sure we're providing. It's not just about the kids that are going to be potentially going off to college and have the opportunity to state college or a private college. It's for all students. And I know that Ms. Spinoza is sitting next to you, and also CTE kids to have a fundamental bottom line education, a quality education that includes all these things. So I don't want to, skip that beat of making sure that we're doing this for all students. And that's why I would suggest that we do look at, of the 75% or of the other 25%, who were they? If they were not a grand amount of students, who were they and what can we do so that we start this and offer this to our students sooner rather than later? And I think that's super important. The other piece, I'm not giving up on this. You've heard it from me before, financial literacy. Many schools, in addition to Mass Core, are adopting financial literacy. And there is a buzz from the governor's graduation council that is also going to be part of requirements, is financial literacy. Have you thought about that in terms of kind of the staffing and what the maneuvers could be with staffing?
We haven't thought about that in terms of staffing. I haven't taken that into consideration again for what we're specifically faced with right now as a reality. Again, my forward-thinking brain is certainly thinking about that. But it's not something that came into play when I'm thinking currently about what our current status is. But I can tell you, I know Ms. Spinoza just whispered over my ear, we have increased, if you want to chime in on that, Ms. Spinoza?
Sure. So we do offer a FinLit elective class that's highly popular. We've got a phenomenal teacher. And because of the amount of student requests, we have increased the amount of classes that individual is teaching. So it is a popular class. I would like to see it be turned over and given as some kind of math credit, because the individual who is teaching it is also a mathematics educator as well. But it's a great class, and if you ever sit in on that class, you walk away learning something every time. It's a phenomenal class.
I am fully on board, and
I'm so sorry. We've also added this year that AP personal finance class.
Yep.
Surprisingly, this is the first time we're offering it next year. We have two sections. That's how popular it is. And again, knowing who the educator is, and most of that classwork is hands-on. A lot of that is hands-on, authentic learning, which is really excited because it's real-life stuff that the students are going to be engaged in. So I'm expecting that class to start to blow up as well once the students start taking it.
I appreciate that, and I'm glad you spoke to that, because I think one of the things that I will say repeatedly is that financial literacy can go from your college prep and even your students that are struggling and are in some other special education programs, all the way through and including into the AP arena. It can be for some kids to really be able to go to a store and order something and figure out the money, all the way through those AP kids who are going to be playing the stock market and our next millionaires. So I think if we can get that as a math course, I think that would be fantastic. And I will say it is probably going to be like June 23rd that the governor's office, the Graduation Council is likely to release things. So I do have some concerns about not thinking about this in advance, because if I'm understanding you correctly, the CTE, or maybe my question should be, is this CTE financial literacy class that you're talking about, personal finance, is that solely available if you're in a CTE business track, or is that available to anyone?
No, it's available to everyone.
Great.
And so,
Great.
Ms. Millman, just to, further with the program of studies, this team is committed to putting whatever graduation requirements are in the school committee policy. And
Yep.
the program of studies is designed to share the school committee policy for the graduation requirements, as well as the GPA and the grading requirements, and show the course offerings. So in terms of procedure, I know that the committee needs to approve the program of studies. Preferably that's done before course selection. We put it out in draft form and made some additional edits. However, the graduation requirements is driven by the school committee policy, and then the program of studies reflects that policy. So we can't change the program of studies to reflect the policy until it's made from the school committee, if that makes sense. So at this point, the program of studies is what it is for this year, and edits can certainly be made once the school committee votes a policy, but I know you're not going to do that till the summer. So, I mean, at this point, I think we would enter, because I think we're not going to get the think tank recommendations for a school committee policy change for graduation. But there is a language that was put in there. You guys did a great job with that. So, I mean, at this point, we should probably entertain a recommendation to approve the program of studies so that the students are picking classes based on an approved program of studies.
I actually agree with you, and I think that was the one, and I think it was on page 6 or page 9 where the math core is added. There were 2 paragraphs added. They were right below the current chart, and I guess what I would say and just ask that maybe we make it also visibly maybe a paragraph of understanding what math core and what the change is, to have the chart for the incoming, if that's what it's going to be, reflect what it is moving forward, because it's not very clear the way it is currently written is all I would say. But this is getting a little bit beyond, I know, what the budget conversations are, but I put it out there, and the reason I put it out there is that I do have concerns about potentially cutting staff as we're taking on Mass Core. because it concerns me how we'll be meeting it. And I know that, Ms. Randall, I am sure you have thought about it, but I just want to put it out there is that the caution is it's going to be hard if we're here next year saying, wow, we figured out we need to bring someone back. So I'd like to think a little bit more into the future of how we're going to meet that. And my last thing would be is what are the multilingual language supports that are supporting in the current classrooms? How's that working out? And I don't know, is that where the 7.0 is in the budget here? Are those the supports? Are those meeting the needs of the students?
I believe so. I believe that line item refers to our full-time ESL staff, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah. So most of those classes would be independent, not necessarily a co-taught model, but, our ESL teachers teaching at the classes at the appropriate learning levels for the students that are enrolled in them. Beyond that, we've had a lot of success. We have actually one of our science teachers that last year, go back a couple of years, started as pushing in a co-taught model. So was teaching biology as the biology teacher and had an ESL teacher kind of pushing in as a co-taught support. That science teacher went and got her certification and now is in her second year of independently teaching EL Bio, and last year had really remarkable biology MCAS pass rate for our EL subgroup, and the kudos goes all to her. That's Miss Lynn Cerullo. For her work with our biology students, specifically in that EL cohort. We also have like a bit of a co-teaching model for Algebra 1 and Geometry as well, with one of our math department staff with EL push-in co-taught support as well, and that's also going well. So that's two areas on the STEM side where we have that push-in support.
And you don't foresee needing more of that in adopting the Mass Core?
Right now, just due to the specific enrollment numbers, I would say no. I think the enrollment numbers right now are kind of driving me to say I don't believe the additional support there is necessarily warranted through the numbers. But again, we kind of, just sort of, it's year to year. It's year to year to see what our enrollment projections look like there.
Okay, I just wanted to bring out the fact that bringing on Mass Core is not going to significantly change all of these things, but that you're constantly, obviously, you are thinking about the impact of bringing on Mass Core because of both the language classes, the language meeting the needs of all of our students, because from what the data does show, it is a bit problematic of the students that are not in the 75%, and making sure that as we will offer these Mass Core classes, we have the appropriate supports to make sure all of these students, our high need students, our special education students, our English learner students, are all being able to access and being given Mass Core effectively. Mm-hmm. So I'm glad you're thinking of it. I know you are. I met you for, like I said, a few hours, and I know you are very thoughtful and mindful about the things that you're doing. So thank you.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Carpenter?
Thank you. Lots of information out there. I appreciate your time. I appreciate you all coming tonight. I have a few different questions, and through the chair, they'll go to Dr. Vidala and to you, Ms. Randall, depending on where they're at. First, Dr. Vidala, this process that we're going through is a little different than what I'm used to. So generally, you'll give us some tier 1s, then we'll go on to tier 2, tier 3. We do hear from different departments at that time so that we can discuss those budget items, those things that are being presented. This seems to be turning a little bit where we did get the tier 1. We have not received any further reductions from you. We are hearing from principals and staff and I think we're getting an idea of what might be coming. I personally would like to know more specifically the questions that I'm going to ask based on budget-related items. So I've kind of teased out a few things that you've said, and I understand that it's not easy, but clearly everyone heard a handful of classes are extremely low. I'm suspecting that those will be the items that we're going to discuss. I think it would be helpful if we knew what they were, and we could discuss those and stay more on point of the budget. Do you expect to bring forward Tier 2, Tier 3 reductions, or are we going to go this way?
So I'm hoping that after tonight, we will be able to go back with the team and identify specifically what those handful of teachers may be, as well as it's not lost on me that we are looking at one specific area, and I do know that we need to look at administrative reductions as well. And so for Tuesday, we'll work specifically with Ms. Randall around what is that handful of teachers that we may need to bring forward, and what type of cuts those may be. I'm hoping that we're looking at Tier 1. And so the reason why we haven't given the specifics tonight is because we're still trying to dig in and gain an understanding, but we wanted to make sure that we brought these people in front of you so you could kind of understand the context. So what I anticipate bringing next week is what those specific areas are at the high school within the teaching staff and what type of reductions may be. And that may be if we know that there's some attrition coming, whether it's retirements or people switching jobs or resignations or things like that, that will help quantify, is this a level 1 cut, a Tier 1 cut, or a Tier 2 cut. In addition, Ms. Randall touched a little bit about some administrative restructuring. I do know, and you know, I think a couple of years ago we talked about there was a specific administrator, staff member that was ready to retire, however, wasn't ready to make it public, but we did vote a reduction in the budget. I do know of a couple administrative positions that we may be able to bring forth in the coming weeks that are similar, that would be administrative reductions that would not require cuts, so they would be Tier 1 reductions due to attrition, such as retirement or people moving on to other professional opportunities. As we get those, I'll be able to bring those hopefully more detailed to you, and I'm hoping to do that on Tuesday. So I did want to provide some context today so we could ask some questions, and then knowing this context to provide the detail. The only reason why it's not presented as a Tier 1 or Tier 2 is I just don't know that level of specificity, but wanted to be able to provide some people to come before you to talk about the context of what they're seeing, as well as you know, just to kind of get us to wrap our heads around it. I didn't want people to feel rushed, but I know that people's time is important. So I anticipate bringing some very detailed information on Tuesday the 5th, a week from last night, to be able to bring forth for a vote.
So I appreciate that explanation, and I want to say, I appreciate having you here, but I also don't want to waste your time. If we're here for a budget meeting, there are things that people are waiting to hear about, and I think we need to really get to those and have you here to answer those questions, right? So there's things that we handle during school committee meetings, and then we're in a budget meeting. So I've heard what you said about a handful of classes. That's where I'm really focused right now. I think we're going to have to wait. You know, I appreciate all the work that you do. I do have another question in regards to the deans. You explained the restructuring of that, and I respect your professional opinion on that. I just need a little bit of help figuring it out. So there's 4 deans. 1 will be exclusive to 9th grade. 2 deans will be 10th, 11th, and 12th. Can you explain to me the 1 academic dean? Like, what is the difference between the academic dean and, say, like, your assistant principal? Like, how does that, what's the difference there?
Sure. Yeah, so specifically the difference there is, so my assistant principal is more focused in on, let's say, operational building management and structures, you know, kind of helping to kind of be an oversight support with the deans of students on student-facing matters. security matters. There's a laundry list of things under that position. I know I'm really generalizing by saying like building and operations management
No, I understand.
versus an administrator who can really be my right-hand person on all things that are instructionally focused. So more instructionally focused. So really leaning in where, not to say that any other administrator doesn't have instructional and academic responsibilities. Everybody shares the full caseload in the high school of all of our staff when it comes to supervision and evaluation. So that piece, everybody would still have a piece of that pie. But it's I would say the percentage of their daily responsibilities where that varies a little bit. So while the assistant principal, a little bit more in charge of building operations and management on the day-to-day basis, still oversees a couple of departments worth of teachers and still has the role there, the dean of academics would really have would have more of a caseload in that sense, really overseeing, when you think of especially our four main, I want to say main content areas, but your English, math, science, and social studies. Thinking about, again, some of the instructional work that we're doing, the vision that we have for the future, the ongoing work and the momentum that we have there, this person would really be leaning in there to help support teachers and instructional leaders, meaning my department heads, also in those kind of four main content areas for cohesiveness, for consistency, helping to lead a lot, like I said, some of those instructional rounds that we do several times a year, professional development experiences, what professional development experience, what experiences look like in between those professional development opportunities, just so, like I mentioned earlier, so the work doesn't lull back and then always gear up when we have something fresh and new. So somebody that can just kind of keep that consistency
Maintain it,
going.
yeah.
So really just taking that academic lead.
Okay.
But I think it's important to have somebody building-based that knows, our staff and students and has strong relationships to help me lead in that work.
Okay, thank you for that. And before I give up my opportunity to speak, the talk about the approval of the program of studies, which is very far behind at this point. Did I hear you say, Dr. Vidala, that you would like a motion to approve it tonight?
Yeah, if the
That-
committee's ready to approve it, it's posted on the website, we can take draft off of it. If there's any edits that need to be made, we can incorporate that into the motion and move forward.
Okay, I'd like to make a motion to follow the recommendation of the superintendent and approve the program of studies for the high school.
Second.
Okay, thank you, Mrs. Carpenter. You've heard the motion made. Motion was seconded by Mrs. Dunn. Any comments on the motion? Roll call vote, please.
Mrs. Dunn,
Yes.
Mr. Olympio,
Yes.
Ms. Millman, Ms. Millman.
Yes.
Mrs. Carpenter,
Yes.
Mrs. Cox.
Yes.
Mr. Miko.
Yes.
Thank you, Mrs. Carpenter. All set? Mrs. Dunn?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, high school crew. I appreciate all the information you've given us, and I really do appreciate you explaining about your plan on restructuring in light of helping the 9th grade. You came to us last year about concerns with 9th grade pass rate, and you said you were going to be looking into this. I think you might have even come the year before about this too. You've really studied this, and I want to give you credit for coming up with a plan to address it. And it's that, I know you with the math head, it's that mathematical, methodical thought that I could hear that in what you're talking about. It makes sense, and I'm glad you're going to try it. I think it's something to help, and I really do appreciate it. I know we don't have definitive numbers yet on the changes, but having that background explains so much and really is very helpful. I have a couple of questions. I know that we will need to re-examine the deployment of staff and the needs for staff with a full Mass Core application in our district. And I know people have expressed concern about the numbers and the percentage of students at the high school taking the Mass Core programs. I actually would like to ask, and I did bring this up to Dr. Vidala, I'd like to look at how we calculate our numbers and how they are submitted to the state. One of the reasons I'm going to ask this, and I'm so glad you're here, Ms. Spinoza, how many students are in the CTE program offhand? I don't mean to put you on the spot, but,
No, you don't put me on the spot. I actually was going to tell the committee tonight.
oh, okay.
So
All right,
because
I'm
of
jumping
that-
ahead. I hope you don't mind, but there's a reason for this.
Okay, currently, right now, we have 435 in career-focused areas, meaning the 6 CTE programs and the 1 IP program,
Okay.
which is actually, you're going to take my thunder because I've got a whole spiel right
I don't mean
here.
to do that,
But
but
it's actually 27% of the high school, which seems a little significant. But in actuality, that's only 7 programs, and we don't even touch upon any kind of construction trade, automotive trade, or any kind of cluster like that. We only have 2 production shops. So the majority of those shops are actually, industry theory-focused coursework that our students go on to post-secondary education, and I actually brought those numbers too. So 83% of our past graduates in my recent one-year follow-up study, 83% of them are all in post-secondary education within their career field. The remainder of them went directly into the workforce in their career field. So our CTE program is at 100% placement rate with all
Which
of our
is huge.
students that graduate.
And I don't want to steal your thunder.
Well,
I'm going to let you have
that's
your
okay.
presentation.
No, it's all
But-
right. Not a presentation, discussion.
It's discussion. But I'm sitting here in amazement because 25% of our students are taking CTE programs. Our Mass Core percentage is 75%. Can you please look to see if we have reported correctly, because CTE students are exempt from the Mass Core requirements for world language and for arts.
Thank
And
you.
due to scheduling difficulties, that may be the reason why our number is that way. I have no idea. But I know that at this high school and in Peabody, we're always very, very careful with how we report things. We're very, very accurate. And I know other communities report things differently. And I'm just wondering if this could have been a glitch, and I am shocked to have that number pop up like that. But if we can look at that, I think it might give us an accurate picture of exactly what's going on with the Mass Core requirements and the program of studies that all of our students are taking, because we do offer an amazing education at the high school. You are preparing children to go out into the world for career, for college, for military service. It is absolutely taking place, and I want to make sure that we're accurate when we report it out to the public. So, I don't know, could be a coincidence. Mathematically, I don't know about that. So thank you. I also want to thank you for all of you for doing what you do at the high school and providing a good education for our students. We have an outstanding staff. We have outstanding students. Had a wonderful time today at the Civics Day event. As a matter of fact, to jump on what Dr. Gonzalez said earlier, just so you all know, I made a list of the presentations from the students that I would like to have them come and present at the school committee. It's in the evaluations we conducted. A couple, I said, you need to speak to the mayor. I got a list for you, Mr. Mayor. It was really wonderful to hear from them, to see how engaged they were, to look at the research they did, and to understand it wasn't just for that one class. They do that in a lot of other classes. And I just want to thank you for that and for your hard work. So, thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Dunn. Mr. Miko?
I guess I'll just pass this over to Dr. Vidal, because what I have to say doesn't really include this, but if you want to continue or end this session.
It would be a good segue if Ms. Spinoza wants to give a quick just overview of CTE. I know you just started, so maybe just kind of finish up. If you turn to page 16 of the handout, I believe it's tab 12, is our vocational education. We are not recommending any reductions in this area. We're actually looking to expand in several areas as we move forward. And these are some of the things that we'll talk about in the education subcommittee and in the fall about some programs we'd like to see coming in. But I would like to give Ms. Spinoza an opportunity to talk a little bit about some of the great things going on in CTE and some of the expansions that we may have coming forward.
So you just heard me say some percentages. With those 27%, I guess the positive, right, the significant positive, because we don't have the trades program, our programs are heavily endowed with female applicants. So we're not reaching a section of the population, which is often males. Bringing in a new high school, hopefully, will help that. Deciding on which programs that this committee, that your committee decides on bringing in, it will absolutely bring those numbers up, reach more of that population. So I'm expecting our CTE programs to really, really flourish. Just to let you all know, it's not here, but I did come to present in front of you in September with the program of studies regarding the lottery. I would like all of you to know that we didn't require a lottery this year, just in case you were wondering. We had 174 applicants, so if we stretched our class sizes to 22 students, we would have been okay. And then that would have been the exact cutoff, so we didn't require that, which is very exciting. So that being said, when we talk about our budget, like anything else, right, I'd like to come in front of you all and say, to help my budget, I would love more educators. I know because of this current year, that's not going to happen. But when we talk about the current school budget that I do have, a lot of that is equipment. I can break it down. I do have stipends. Those stipends are because our educators do a lot of things after school, because we do have a lot of community partners, industry partners. So we have after-school events with our industry partners. We have to gather industry partners in order to give our students workplace experience. So our educators are calling workplace facilities and coordinating there. They also do PACs. Many of you would have received an email from me, because I always invite all of you to my GAC meeting, which is similar to their PAC. Some of their PAC members are also on my GAC member meeting as well, and you hear all my numbers when we discuss what's happening within CTE. Always gives me an opportunity to brag about the amazing things my teachers and the students are doing in our programs. So anybody that's open, come. I would love to have you all there. So that's where the stipends go for the teachers. We have a lot of expendables, meaning hair color, hairspray, urine tests, finger sticks, needles, all the things that make our programs what they are with real-world equipment, but meaning that our students use it once and it's tossed away. But they need to use it once because that's what they use in industry, and they need to practice on it, and they need to be competent using these different materials. So a lot of that falls under that section of the budget. So when you think in terms of the programs that I have, currently right now, cosmetology uses a ton of that budget, followed by electronic engineering, and then medical assisting, and then so forth. We also, this year in particularly, I did a 3-year rollout plan on 2 particular areas, one within the IP program, the Innovation Pathway with the business, where we're buying a lot more equipment and or expendables for the business apparel course. That's when we're gonna start making t-shirts and hats and stickers and all that stuff, hopefully to get a school store started that then will generate some more funds down the road that will help us pay for a lot of the certifications that our kids get, right? So the budget here also subsidizes some of that certifications that our students get. And our students need those certifications to be placed out into industry, to have that leg up, to be able to get good jobs, to have a good foundation when they go into post-secondary education, wherever it may be. The other thing that we did for a 3-year rollout plan is Little Tanners paired with our library to give our early learners a leg up as well, so that we're starting to build a Little Tanners library within our library where our young ones come up, they can start checking out books, and they have books read to them. So that's a great collaboration, but we've got to fill that library, right? So that's our 3-year rollout plan. We started developing some books. We got some rugs up there. We got it blocked off, so it's really exciting watching this stuff happen. That being said, I would really like to say I'm proud of what we do at Peabody High School. I am really proud of my educators. They work hard every day, bring in real-world industry and life experience to these students. I'm proud of my kids. Today, Dr. Vidala was in, and I explained to him a great success story of one of our past graduates. I have stories like that every single day, especially when I have the opportunity to walk into the workforce and see our past graduates being placed in different positions that we've placed them in, and how grateful they are to my teachers and to the program. And then getting emails back. Can you give me a letter of recommendation for me becoming a nurse, or for me going to graduate school or whatnot? It's just so amazing, the stories that our teachers have. I'm very proud of all of them, but I'm open to any questions that anybody has.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Minosa. Any questions, Mrs. Carpenter?
Thank you. Thank you for coming here. I just had a couple of questions. I kind of know the answer to some of them, but I just want to make sure. A few of your CTE programs generate revenue. How is Little Tanners doing? I don't see, where do I see that in the budget book, Little Tanners? Do they?
So Little Tanners gets deposited into our revenue account, which then helps actually supply our culinary department. And
Great.
that's why you don't see in the regular budget, yes, you
Got
don't
it.
see in that regular budget any, I'm not taking food out of there. That's why I said, so it's actually supplying our
They're taking
active
care of each
restaurant.
other.
Absolutely.
Yep.
Right.
And
And-
that's the same thing what we would like to do for the school store in terms of certifications. Because a lot of the certifications, especially the business students are getting, big money. When you start to pay into Certiport, that's like $190. And we're paying for those exams for the kids.
And OSHA too? They do
Yes,
OSHA?
we get
and you have to pay
OSHA
for those?
certified,
Yep.
yep. So our kids get a number of industry-recognized credentials that's not coming out of their pocket, because we want to make sure that they're successful with the next steps. And we want to be able to place them in the workforce ready to go.
And the
being
work that
safe.
they're doing is paying for most of that anyway.
Absolutely. And
Yep.
it's given the students a leg up. It's given, it's not even the students, it's given our community a leg up, because this is our next generation of the workforce. So being able to do that to them, we're paying back to the community, so it's nice.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
It's a nice
and you'll
feeling.
see specific lines as well. So 12002 is the instructor for the early childhood.
Yeah, I did see
In the Little
those, yep.
Tanners, and then you see the paras are 12004.
Yep.
And then they do have a small supply, a modest supply budget for early childhood, and that's more for the materials. And then the revenue that is generated goes into the revolver, and then it gets reinvested back in the program.
And I hate to say this, but are you, do we look over those tuition rates there?
We do.
We do.
We do. It has gone up a little bit, and I think the bigger thing was that they did a great job recruiting this year. The numbers were a little bit down post-COVID, and we really looked into that, and they did really fill the seats this year. So we are seeing more revenue coming in this year, which is helpful. There is a little bit of a discount for our teachers, which is just a nice benefit for the teachers to have their own children in the building.
How many kids can you take in Little Tanners?
12.
How many do you have there now?
We have, I'm going to say we have 10 on one day, 12 on the other.
Yeah, I get it.
Yeah, they're staggered, yep.
Yeah. And this isn't part of the budget meeting, but I'm going to throw it out there. I hope when we are building the new high school, we have a nice playground and a nice place for Little Tanners. And we can maybe have 20 preschoolers in there instead of 12. I am a big advocate for that program, and I know you'll get the kids in there, so thank you for that. That's all I have.
Thank you, Mr. Carpenter. Mr. Amico?
Thank you. Through the chair to Spinoza. Very quickly, do you get donations from hospitals, beauty supply companies?
On occasion.
On occasions?
I do write grants,
Okay.
and I'm sure you all have heard that. So currently, right now, I did write it up, but I probably don't need it. If you walk into my office, you'll see them all written on my board. But we do.
I'm sorry, we'll see what on the board.
All my grants that are up there.
Okay.
So we do subsidize a lot with
No,
grants.
thank you.
So we get a Perkins grant every year, and that's fluid. You never know how much money, that's gonna get. Sometimes we get a equipment grant every year through Perkins every summer. And usually I use that equipment grant to fund some of the big ticket items for cosmetology. And the reason why is because if I write a capital skills grant for cosmetology, it's usually denied. I've written a capital skills grant for cosmetology for like 4 years, and it's been denied because they don't consider that a needed industry within the region. However, I'll tell you that we've got a lot of need for it within Peabody.
Thank you. Could you, and this isn't time sensitive, at your leisure, could you get us a list of the most important items that you need for your programs? And let's put it out there, and maybe through the Peabody Ed Foundation or through our community. I mean, we've got a lot of beauty salons, we have supply houses, all within this area. I'm sure some of these companies would want to donate. And if not, we'll press the issue a little bit more.
I appreciate that,
Sure.
Mr. Amico. And just to let you know, all my teachers every year, they write a PFT grant, and they usually get it.
I'm sure.
So, and they've been very good to us. They've
Okay.
been very, very good to us.
Awesome. Thank you. Appreciate it.
And you.
Thank you, Mr. Amico. Mrs. Dunn?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you, Ms. Spinoza. I didn't want to steal your thunder, and I'm glad you got to give us all that
No, it's okay.
information.
I just kind of shuffled my papers a little bit to
Thank
figure out
you.
what I needed to say.
You're very flexible on these things. You have every right to be very proud of what goes on in our CTE program. It's excellent, and our students are thriving. They're doing a wonderful job. I was actually very proud yesterday and today on WBZ Radio.
Oh,
To
you
he-
heard it?
I heard it every time I was in the
Yes.
car.
Every 30
Interview
minutes.
with,
Isn't that fabulous?
yes, and
So-
it was great.
So let me just
wonderful.
tell you, that came in as a call early yesterday morning. I reached out to the superintendent and to Principal Randall and said, can we do this? Dr. Chase got involved, and we literally, at 1 o'clock, I picked up, you guys know poor Dale had eye surgery, right? So he can't drive. So I picked up poor Dale, and we drove to Astound so that they could do that interview.
Oh, wow.
Yes.
I don't know if everybody knows what we're talking about.
I
Ms.
heard it.
Spinoza, you go ahead. Take
All right,
that
so-
thunder too,
so-
really.
So I just have to say, so we have a fabulous fiber optic program in our electrical engineering department. It's really awesome. And we are actually, as of right now, the only one in the state of Massachusetts. I believe we're the only one, and the only one in any high school in the United States that has this program.
Yeah.
But our kids are being scoffed up for fiber optic technicians pretty quickly. We now have them in co-op opportunities. They're making over $22 an hour. I mean, they're high school kids. That's pretty amazing. But Astound has been our partner for the last 5 years. And they take our students and they do a paid externship. So because of that, they were picked up because they came to our career fair.
Yep.
Miss Randall did an interview with Mark, and that went to the newspaper. The
Just last week.
WBZ picked it up and called me and said, hey, we saw this. Do you mind letting us do a report? And I'm like, sure, let me see how quick I can make this happen. And they said, I need to get the story in by 2 o'clock. I'm like, 2 o'clock today? Sure.
It's been running since yesterday, all
Yeah,
all
and it's
night,
been running
and
all day.
today, yeah. It's
Yep.
great.
Yep, it's 1-minute segments with the kids and the teachers, and I'm very, very proud of that whole department.
Yeah.
They're doing fabulous, and they're doing wonderful things for those students.
Yeah. That's all. Thank you. Thank you.
If I could say, I mean, I'm glad you talked about that program because, you know, taxpayers, the state, they invested in that was capital skills grant. And to see how that was leveraged in this way. I know you did an immense amount of work to write the grant, an immense amount of work to purchase and place the right equipment to grow that program.
A lot of that too is, don't forget, my fabulous teachers' visions too. So it's a team effort, it's a school effort. It's good for the community too. It's very good for the community.
Excellent. Thank you, Mrs. Spinoza. Very exciting, and we're very proud of this. And you know, all of our programs there are going to do great things, and we're excited to share all of that. And last but not least, I do want to give a chance for Mr. Simmons to speak about performing arts. So if you turn to page 18 in your handout, and I believe it's tab 15 in the binder, at page 18, is our performing arts budget. And this is certainly lean for all the amazing things that the Performing Arts Department does. The elementary music and art teachers are contained in this budget because they are shared between buildings, and then the visual and performing arts teachers at the Higgins and the high school are contained within their local budget. You may recall that 3 years ago, we had 5 music teachers and 5 art teachers that were spread across the 8 buildings, as well as Mr. Simmons as the music director and performing arts director. And then when the year that we closed the center school, we had to reduce by 1 FTE. So we have one person who's currently, we have 4 music, 4 art, and then 1 teacher who does half and half. It's not the best situation. As we've been doing, we were looking to maybe add a position back last year, and it wasn't in the budget. So it is something we're able to meet the needs of our students, and ultimately, long-term, as we continue to grow at the center, we do anticipate trying to bring back that additional FTE. Eventually, I know it's wish day, but I do think if we can do that in a level budget situation, a level funded situation, that is something that we're looking at. And I say that because that's the most boring part of this, and the exciting part of it, of all the great things that performing arts does and all the programs that we have for art and theater and music. I'll turn over to the maestro, Mr. Simmons, who is extremely talented and leads an incredible group. So, Mr. Simmons.
Thanks. I'd like to pick up with what Dr. Vidala has said about our elementary staff. They see 100% of the elementary students. Their reach is incredible. They work very hard to create dynamic lessons, and they do so much to create that culture of welcome. And within each building, they celebrate through their artistry the uniqueness of each of our elementary schools. Excuse me. So a big shout out to that elementary staff. They work hard, and I think I echo what Dr. Vidala is saying about the staffing, that they would benefit from 5 full-time art teachers and 5 full-time music teachers. But moving to the middle school, that sense of welcoming continues with the ensemble experiences that students enjoy at our middle school, in addition to many really fabulous electives or exploratories, excuse me. Lots of, I know you come into this building every other week and see the art on the walls, and we have lots to celebrate here. And certainly at the high school, we're trying to put Peabody on the map, when it comes to artistry and high quality. That's really all I have to say. I'm so thankful and grateful to you for supporting us through the years and continuing to support us and our vision.
Great. And so we're not looking at any reductions tonight with this budget. And one thing I will point out, the supply line in this budget is very unique because it's not tied to a school, so you won't see any reductions here because we can't reduce piano tuning by 25% and instrument cleaning and things like that. So it's not realistic to reduce their supply budget, so that's why it was not a proposal.
Thank you. Any items or questions for Mr. Simmons? Mrs. Dunn?
Just praise.
Thank you. you. Thank you.
Just because I'm new and I'm looking at this budget page, that the split of the art and music teacher, that's gonna be that like 5, though, okay, and that's just like a split. So instead of like a 4.5 and a 4.5, it's just, thank you.
So it's listed under visual arts, that's what the teacher was originally doing, and she's currently doing both. And that's why you see there's only 4 music teachers. She's picking up those 2 sections.
I have a question.
So with that said,
I just had a
I
question.
think, you know, the bell is ringing. And so I know that Ms. Carpenter had mentioned tonight was a little different, and given the size and scope of the high school and the changes that we're seeing, I did think it was important to provide some context, but I am committed to bringing some more detail to the committee a week from now. We will be working to really be thoughtful about how we identify what the positions are specifically and what type of reduction we are going to ask the committee to make, because we weren't ready to make that. Is it a tier 2 cut? Is it a tier 1 reduction? I prefer to bring you a tier 1 reduction, so if I can have a week to get a little bit more information and bring you better information, I just appreciate the patience on that, because these are very thoughtful decisions. As well, I do know that we cannot be looking at this one specific area, and we do need to look at administrative areas, and I hope to bring you some more detail on that as well, with a couple administrative positions as well. We know we need to tighten the belt across the board, and you have that commitment from me. Hopefully for the committee to review on Friday to ask questions for a Tuesday meeting, that's our current target.
Dr. Vidala? Dr. Vidala?
Yes, go ahead, Ms. Millman.
I just had one question for performing arts, if I may. Does any licensing for any of the shows, is that included in, like the MTI licensing, is that included on the budget? For stage 1?
No, specifically no. That is funded through student activities.
Oh, the full licensing comes through the activities fee?
Specifically, the licensing for musicals comes from student activities account.
Okay. Okay, so that wouldn't show up on this at all?
Correct.
Okay, all right. Thank you. Just want to make sure you keep putting on those good productions.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Millman. All right, so I would propose that we break in recess until May 5th at 6 p.m. here at the Higgins Middle School Library.
Motion to recess.
Okay. Thank you, Ms. Dunn. You've heard the motion, seconded by Mr. Olympio. That's a unanimous vote. Thank you, everyone. Thank you all. Thank you.
He looked the other way.